Welcome to Spring Breakin. What should have been a pay-per-view? Why wasn't it? This is not a third time I've done this because sometimes when I'm trying to describe something about a situation, it gets me a bit. It gets hard to try and describe something, and I screw up maybe twice before I get it. And I know I don't have to say it, but you deserve to understand the way I'm thinking. Because not every reviewer is going to tell you the process of what makes them who they are. I'm an open book almost. I'd rather tell you what I'm thinking. And when it came to this show, it needed to be a pay-per-view, not because it was the best they produced. It was because it just needed more time for several key moments of this show. It needed an extra 30 minutes. It needed maybe 40 minutes. It stopped at what? I kept saying 8:15. It's 10:15. I think that's when it ended. And it should have been 10:50 or 10:45 when they needed to end, because some stuff you just needed more. First, a barbecue. I'm going to tell you this. Was the barbecue segment good? Honestly, it was a nice change. Vince would have never done it. Not like that. He has done segments where you had parties, but that was during holidays. This wasn't. This was just a party. And it felt a bit fresh. So if this was done by Mr. Michaels himself, Mr. HBK, I give him props. This was different. It's not like Triple H would do something like this, and definitely Vince would only wait until it was a celebration like at Jeddah, where he's getting this to do it. That was before he sold the company. And he would mainly do it on holidays or at a signature pay-per-view. So for here, it felt fresh. I'm not saying it was perfect. It felt a bit cringy, particularly when Big Bobby Holly was getting chased down and he got thrown into a fountain, but it wasn't bad. They were describing what was going to happen in the show. So it was refreshing a little bit. It was a bit different. Opening, which should have been more than 20 minutes or maybe 25 minutes. It felt rushed. The trunk match, which is basically an ambulance match, but now with a Dodge 1947 hard top, well, not a soft top, but an old Dodge that had a hard top on it, because they used to have soft tops back in the day as well for Dodges. And this 47 was a solid one. Looked lovely. I love the blue color. And we got Pretty Deadly versus the family of the Don and the Underboss. It wasn't bad. At certain points, I thought they might have been a little too rough, because I think the Don, when, I can't remember who hit him in the face, what looked like it might have been a roll of fake quarters, he might have actually got stunned a little bit, because he might have hit him really hard right in the eye, or near his eye. He might have stunned him really good. But it was a good match. It wasn't perfect. It was an ambulance match for a tag team. But it was done with an old 47 Dodge. But I'm telling you now, it should have been, what, how many minutes was it? Like, not counting the opening, which was about 5 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes easily. And it was, what, 18 or 17 minutes for the entire thing with the intro of the barbecue. It should have had an extra 20, it should have been 20 to 25 minutes. This is where it should have been, because it felt shortened. Too short to be a fact. Because at one point, once Pretty Deadly threw in the Underboss, he used a what was it? A small or a large fire extinguisher? I think it was a large one, the way they always use it. I think the smaller one would have been better. But once Pretty Deadly was thrown in there, they didn't even try to fight out of it. At least once, because it was the Underboss that managed to get out, because he used the fire extinguisher. Pretty Deadly was just knocked out and thrown in without any struggle at all, at least once. And that was the problem with that. It was too short. Of course, the Don and Underboss won, and at the end of the show, they supposedly tied him up with some, as they used to say, some concrete boots or shoes and threw them in the ocean and drove away in the Dodge. That is the way they used to do it. Let's be honest. They used to do stuff like that, along with some very nasty stuff in other parts of the country. But that's what we got. And it felt too short. Let's move on. Braun Breaker versus Andre Chase, because the lovely Duke Hudson had Duke set his ass up because he didn't want to face Braun. He is the MVP holding his precious, my precious. He kisses his, I bet you when he's home, if they did the segment, he's home and he kisses his trophy, go, oh my precious, oh my darling, oh, your nipples are hard. That is what he would do. That is what Duke would do. And he didn't want to face him as the MVP. So he made Andre Chase take the bullet. And Andre, falling for it, basically ate the bullet. And Braun was Braun. He whooped that ass. He didn't even try that hard. Yes, he did get beat up a little bit during the match. At least make Andre at least look somewhat good. Because Andre did attack him at first. That was the wisest thing. But it didn't last long. Andre got his ass whooped. And that was the end of it. I kind of wish that Braun Breaker had jumped outside and chased a little bit more of a Duke Hudson to make it more apparent that Duke only cares about himself and he'd be willing to sacrifice everyone to keep his trophy and his MVP status intact. That's just the way I feel. Third, the match that didn't even need to happen on this Summer Break-In. That's Valkyria versus Cora Jade. I'm sorry. Cora Jade didn't even need this match. Neither did Valkyria, who I still don't feel. I'm sorry. Valkyria should be a much more bigger person than she is. I don't get anything from Valkyria. She doesn't feel special. If she leaned into it like a Alba Fire is, and like a Isla Dawn, where they're literally going into their Celtic and kind of witch kind of thing. I'm not getting from Valkyria. It just feels like a gimmick that she's not really playing into. She just used the smoke and mirrors and that's it. She should just drop it and just be a standard European wrestler, or at least be something else. I'm not feeling it. It's not a ring work. Her ring work is fine. It's just her gimmick sucks. But I didn't expect Cora Jade to lose here. There was no way. I didn't feel nothing from Valkyria. They don't got anything good for Valkyria. And Valkyria is done. She lost. Cora Jade won. And that was that. Now, this is where I'm going like, really? You're doing this now? This is at the 8:51 hour. Not 9 o'clock. Not 9:30. 8:51. They didn't even go to the 1 hour. They did it 9 minutes before. The NXT title between Grayson Waller and why? Why was this on the show? Or better yet, why wasn't this closing the damn show? This needed to be further up on the card. You just put this just before the 1 hour mark. You started the match then. And we got a good match out of Grayson Waller as well as a Carmelo Hayes. And only once did we see Trick Williams try to interfere. And he paid for that once Grayson Waller whooped that ass. He basically nailed his ass. Yes, he did throw a chair into the ring and then grabbed another chair and nailed Trick Williams with it, which I'm fine with. We know Carmelo's not 100% a face because he's still using Trick Williams. Let's be honest here. Everyone loves to hate. He's like the bad guy you want to cheer for that you know is cool. That is what Carmelo Hayes is. And that's what Trick Williams is. He's a kind of anti-good guy. That's what he is, sort of. Not like all the way. He's cool. He's a slick character. But as I've said before, I don't want to see Trick Williams with him. He doesn't need Trick anymore. Trick is an afterthought. He's a waste. And Trick deserves, sooner or later, to be able to do what he needs to do for himself. Because as a cheerleader for Carmelo, and yes, sometimes he wrestles, he's done. He deserves better. He needs to move on and start working on his own persona. That's just me. In the end, Carmelo won. We know he won. And he calls out a Braun Breaker saying, the next one, I want you. Come out here. Next pay-per-view, that's what he wants. And he got his ass whooped for that. Trick got reclined. And then you get Carmelo going through one of the panels next to where commentary and the crowd was, which looked good. It gives sympathy for a little bit of a Carmelo Hayes, trying to make him more of a good guy when he's acting like a cool kind of anti-hero, kind of baddish guy, but still kind of good, because he's still using Trick to save his ass, because Trick tried to save him. I'm just saying. Now, let me say this about two things. Gigi Dolan, when she called out JC James, saying what JC did, that pissed her ass off to the point where she says, I want to match with you. And I'm going to have my baby brother in the arena watching me rip your head off because of what you said about my life. Okay. Actually, this is one of the first times I've seen Gigi really show that type of emotion on camera, not in a vid pack. That is totally different. She had time to rehearse it. Here, it was off the cuff. I'm not saying it hasn't been rehearsed. You know, she had to come up with what she wanted to say in the promo. But still, she was in front of a camera, in front of people, not somewhere on location with only the camera crew. This was with everybody around. And that is something not many people understand. You need to always remember, there's a difference between doing a vid pack and being with the cameramen or women and how they can help you and guide you on how you want to do it, and then being in front of other wrestlers or former wrestlers or commentary and the fans. If you're not used to it, you can botch your ass off, kind of like what happened with Jungle Boy when he first started talking. Because remember, when he was part of Jurassic Express, he used to botch a lot. And it was either Luchasaurus or Marco Stunt to try and help him a little bit. Oh, actually a lot, not a little bit. But you get my point. Also, Joe Coffey, approached by... What am I thinking here? Was that the wisest thing for Joe Coffey to say he's going to let Gallus have a match with Dyad if he loses against Joe Gacy? And we had Alva. She was there as well, showing a little bit of cleavage. Was it wise? No. Is it going to be interesting? Yes. But will it mean something later? I don't know. For Dyad or for Gallus. It's going to be a question how they're going to book that going afterward, whether they win or lose. Just saying. Dijak destroys Dragunov and gets him jammed under well, I'm not going to say that wasn't interesting. Seeing him get caught in a garage door. But the question is, will this lead to anything for a Dragunov? Because as I said before, they're not really doing anything with the UK wrestlers. Nothing incredibly special. They don't get anywhere. Look at Grayson Waller. Again, he didn't win anything. He hasn't won the North American title, and he hasn't won the world title. He looks great, but they're not doing anything with him. And now I wonder, with Dragunov, is it going to be the same way? I'm just saying. You guys tell me below. Now, we had the final moment of the triangle of Briggs, Jensen, Fallon. That's, well, it's kind of a square. Briggs, Jensen, Fallon, and Kiana James. We had the mixed tag between Jensen and Kiana versus Briggs and Fallon. It was an okay match. Seeing Jensen in this new attitude, I actually wish that I'm kind of pissed because at this point they didn't need to end it and let Kiana James say, because they did lose, we already noticed they lost, but simply, why didn't you drag this out another couple of weeks? Let them have more issues, having something to build more of Jensen's character. Why? Why would you only give it one match and one segment before ending it and letting Kiana James say simply, I never loved you, and then Briggs putting his hand on Jensen's shoulder and he's crying in his chest? Because that's what Jensen did. He went straight into his chest and he just started to cry. Why? Why did you change? Why did you rush it? Are they going for the draft? That would make some sense. But if they're not going to be on the draft, there was no reason to rush it. And I believed this was rushed. And it could have been better at the pay-per-view. They could have set this up, going all the way into the pay-per-view and doing it there instead of doing it only 1 week of it. I'm just saying. Obey, FEMA, Emphy. Obey, Emphy? Imphy. I don't know how to pronounce the guy's name. They showed vignettes of him before. I didn't say anything because I wanted to know if he was going to have something more than just throwing furniture. They didn't do anything. So he went up against Manche. I believe his name is Manche. And I'll tell you this. Does he look impressive? Hell yeah, he does. He threw Manche. I'm mispronouncing his name. I know. This is one of the first times I've seen him in a while. He hasn't been shown on NXT TV in quite a while. I'm telling you this. He threw his ass literally more than halfway across the ring. That's how strong this guy is. Being an all-around athlete, shot put and everything, you can see he's like this. And he looked good for his first outing. Now, does this mean I'm going to be behind him? No. Because I need to see more of him. I need to see how he works in the ring with everybody else. Because at one point, he threw Moshe off the top turnbuckle and he whacked his shoulder hard. I mean, hard. Hopefully he didn't actually hurt himself seriously. Because he was shaking his hand pretty good. I know that could be fake. But the way he landed was not exactly one of the better ways of landing. He got his shoulder caught straight onto the edge of the ring skirt. It was a hard hit in his left arm. Hard, guys. There wasn't a joke. And he couldn't roll away from it. So hopefully he didn't really get hurt too bad. Now, final match of the night, which I'm kind of surprised they closed with this match. Because I'm not against Tiffany Stratton or my girl, and Roxanne. Not against them. But when you see how they built this story compared to Grayson Waller and Carmelo Hayes, it should have been the 1 hour main event, and that should have been at the end. It should have been. And that's not because I want women to not get what they are. It's just it didn't feel substantial enough. This felt rushed, honestly. And then when you see how the tope that was done by Tiffany, that literally, and I think I might put it into the thumbnail, because I'm not sure if I'm going to add it to a thumbnail for Summer Breakin. I may actually add it. When you, if I even have it, if you see Indy's ankle get bent back, I'm surprised she didn't tear her Achilles tendon. Oh, it was a bad bend. At first, I thought maybe she might have literally torn out her ACL for her knee. That's what we thought. They took her into the back. But when they started untying her, when she started untying her boot, it was her ankle. It got twisted hard. Hopefully it didn't get torn. She was gone for a while Tiffany and Roxanne were really, really doing the best they could without her there, because honestly, if you see Roxanne versus Tiffany, it didn't exactly work that well. They needed Indy there to help balance it out because Tiffany and her just didn't seem to mesh 100% well. Part of the match once once she was gone. When she came back, it was obvious she was hurt. She could barely walk, and she wanted to finish that match. So it looked like they had to really reposition. At one point, once Tiffany did another tope, did a moonsault, and she literally had to reposition herself because she knew that when you see a wrestler literally know when another wrestler's hurt and they can't move quickly and they gotta reposition themselves when they really need to do the pin. And Tiffany had to do that right under the ring ropes to give Indy a chance to grab her because she could barely walk. It was obvious she could barely walk. And she noticed it. And she literally had to squirm herself over a lot to get under that ring rope. So make it easier for her to grab her. That was obvious. It was just not a good time. But they still chose to keep the title on Indy Hartwell, my girl. Now, is it the wisest thing to keep it on her? I don't know. It's going to count on who's the next challenge for her. What is the next thing for her? Because she's already gone through Zoe Stark. She's now gone through Tiffany and Roxanne, which they can still repeat this. They can have Tiffany by herself and Roxanne. But the question is, before that happens, they need someone else. I don't know who. I don't want either one of them first. Because both of them, this is a character development moment for them. If they rush it, it's going to be a waste. I truly believe Tiffany needs a little more to deal with somebody. And when it comes to Roxanne, what's going to happen now? And I know I can say something about the attack on Sorika. I'm not going to. I'm leaving it purposely. I haven't forgotten it. I'm leaving that attack on purpose because I think it needs more time. I'm not going to comment on it. I want to see how far they're going to go with her. But this is just me, and I hope you enjoy some. And, well, oh, I had to botch, didn't I? Summer Breakin'. Please leave a comment below. I still believe this should have been a pay-per-view. But they wanted it to be a theme show, and this is what we got. It was not perfect. I am telling you now, it was not. But this is just me. Peace.